Chairman of the Transportation Committee, Mr. Mica, for his questions.
Mr. Nicholson, have you seen this report that we published November 16th? That was the 10th anniversary of, I guess, the passage of the TSA legislation. Have you
Yes,
seen
sir.
it? You have seen
Yes,
it?
sir.
Are you one of the people that said that publishing this report was a disservice to TSA?
I have not heard that said.
Your communications folk, when Mr. Isa and I produced this report, said that this was a disservice to TSA. Remember it very clearly, and I wrote the administrator back, and I thought it was a disservice for him to ignore what we had outlined. In that report, we went through TSA's failing to develop and deploy effective technology. Back then, Mr. Isa, we said TSA warehouses are nearly at capacity. We were correct there, containing almost 2,800 pieces of screening equipment. Little did we know there were 5,700 pieces of screening equipment sitting there that, again, you delayed and actually diverted our investigators from going down there, moving the stuff out in the middle of the night before they arrived after delaying them. You need to go back and look at this report, because it wasn't meant, it's not meant to demean TSA, but to better define the mission, to look at the gaps. And we think we did a fairly thorough job. We'll continue to take each part of this, Mr. Eisen and I, apart, and we'll send our investigators down until we somehow make some sense out of this agency. When you're procuring billions of dollars worth of equipment, it's sitting in warehouses, some of it for over a year. Listen to this. When investigators, well, first of all, the committee investigators discovered 85% of the transportation security equipment currently warehoused there has been stored for longer than 6 months. 35% of the equipment had been stored for more than a year. This is, put it up here, guys. Put it up here. First go into 2008. Here is advanced imaging technology sitting in that center since August 4th, 2008. Let's go to the next page. And this is the kind of stuff, the next page here, this is explosive detection system. Now, I don't know exactly which one it was, but people within the last 48 hours are trying to take our lights out, and advanced explosive detection system equipment. This has been sitting there since December 12, 2010. Are you aware of this, sir?
I'm not aware of this.
You're not aware of this? Well, somebody needs to get aware. This is hundreds of millions. The advanced imaging technology was a $500 million acquisition, of which they bought equipment for which we still don't have people that are trained. We don't operate it, and the failure of the equipment. I invite everybody on this panel next week. Yesterday I was briefed in a closed-door briefing on the performance of looking at specifically, and this was scheduled before all of this came out, and we've had the General Accounting Office test the system, and Mr. Ice and I will continue to do it. And we've seen the failures. Somebody needs to see the failures, both in acquiring equipment, deploying equipment, and making sure equipment is not sitting in a warehouse idle when people are trying to take our lights out. Don't you think that's a reasonable request, sir, that we have you act and make certain that this equipment sitting, one is what, 4 years, the other is 2 years, that it's properly deployed or something's done with it. The puffers, at least, you know, we stopped paying for the rental after years of having it in those warehouses, and that'd still be sitting there if we hadn't done something about it.
Well, sir, I can tell you, as I started to say, the EDS, I'm not sure which unit that would be and what type.
Well, I don't think it's millimeter wave, because I don't think we had that deployed at that point. If it is, then I'll really blow my cork.
No, the EDS would be for electronic baggage. The AIT picture, given the date, would have to be a pilot from a program that we had several years ago, because we didn't make our purchase of AIT to deploy in the primary screening area until much later in time, after 2008.
Well, again, the procurement process is a disaster. We've just heard we're buying things that we haven't properly vetted. I do not think any of the advanced imaging technology was properly vetted. In fact, I know it wasn't vetted. I know we could have bought the stick equipment with the image that wasn't offensive, or and now you're going back and vetting and testing the stick equipment rather than the invasive equipment that you deployed. But of course, we have an agency in which we had no administrator for over a year, and an agency that has turned out to be more dysfunctional than anyone would have anticipated. But somebody's got to get a control of this. 65,000 employees, nearly $8 billion in expenditures, 14,000 administrative staff. It's reached critical mass, and taxpayers are not going to put up with it anymore. I yield back.